ArtSite Gallery, and we're absolutely beyond stoked, absolutely thrilled with the show and the calibre of his work. And for those of you who actually don't know Hamish, where are you, Hamish? That's Hamish, who's flying from Japan to be here, and we're very pleased to see you. I'd like to introduce you to Matthew Stavros, who is going to open the exhibition. He's from, I've forgotten, I've just got stage fright.
I'll tell you where I'm from.
Oh, thank you, darling. I'm handing over to Matthew Stavros. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not a photographer, and I'm not an artist of any kind whatsoever. I'm a historian of Japan, of traditional Japan, pre-modern Japan, at the University of Sydney. So, why am I here? Well, there's two reasons why I'm here. The first is because I see something in the images here today by Hamish Campbell, something that is identifiably and quintessentially Japanese. Some of the traits that I see in these images, I think, grasp some of the archetypal characteristics of early Japanese aesthetics. The other reason I'm here is because when he was a younger man, Hamish was my student. And to see him after a few years having gone to Japan and attained such success gives me a great deal of personal satisfaction. When Hamish was my student, quite frankly, he was typical. So what do I mean by that? Like many of my students, he was enamored with Japan. He was enamored with modern Japan, with the anime, with the manga, with the neon lights of Tokyo. For him, and like many of his peers, Japan was a mecca of high tech, a place of robots and vending machines that can and often do sell pretty much anything. And again, like many of my students, he went to Japan after graduating to spend some time in the country of his fascination, a land of his dreams. When he came back, however, now that he's come back, he's brought with him something I think that's much less glitzy than the image he had, yet infinitely more interesting. I think the images that we have here today show that Hamish has internalized some of the most celebrated elements of traditional Japanese aesthetics. He went to Japan, I think, searching for modernity and brought back, or I should say returned as an ambassador of the eternal. Now, specific traits that I'm talking about today are suggestion and irregularity. Now, whereas in the West we've traditionally valued symmetry and the ideals of perfection and refinement, right? We can see this very clearly in any aristocratic English garden or French garden, or better yet, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Now, the Japanese, on the other hand, traditionally celebrated simplicity, austerity, minimalism, and even rusticity. Some of you may know this because you're familiar with the popularized term wabi-sabi, the idea that's supposed to capture these ideas of rusticity. And these ideas originated from the teachings of Zen, which caught on and became mainstream in 13th century Japan. These ideas taught that the world around us is an illusion, and that any attempt to seek out or to create perfection is delusional and will only lead to suffering. Now, it's these ideas that inspired Japanese painters to turn from painting with color and switch to painting with monochrome. Potters stopped throwing their teapots in the refined manner of China and Korea on wheels and instead began forming them hand by hand, leaving them sometimes bumpy and cracked, and their glaze chipped or sometimes bubbled. Finally, it's these ideas of Zen that led medieval architects to begin building small, unassuming grass huts or tea houses that many of us in the West are now very familiar with their earthen tones, the mud walls, thatched roofs, unvarnished, unfinished wood. Since at least the 13th century, Japan's artists have known that contrived perfection blocks the play of imagination. This contrived perfection, like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, demands our admiration, not our participation. I think the images that we have here today by Hamish invite our participation. The Fukuoka salaryman rests in shadow. His age, we don't know. His exact appearance, a mystery. The tunnel in Miyajima, which is just around the corner, the one with the deer in it, the tunnel leads to darkness. Or should I say, it leads to wherever you want it to be. The colors of the Seto Inland Sea, the mountains in the background, the color of the mountain, again a mystery. Or I'd like to say, really left up to us to decide. The scenes also today that you'll see of dereliction, the factory there, and around the corner. These images of, say, an abandoned factory or a dilapidated building, these may run counter to many of our mainstream ideas about Japan, right? But let me put an idea in your head. I think that these ideas of dilapidation, they say something as foretelling about the future as any futuristic robot or Japanese video game. See, Japan, almost uniquely amongst its peer of nations, has made the transition from modern to postmodern, from industrial to post-industrial. In this respect, I believe that what we're seeing in some of these images here today is not an image of the past, but really an image of the future, an image that we all share, a future that we all share. And in this respect alone, perhaps, the images aren't really about Japan. They're universal. They're about us all. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
I won't keep you long, just very few things, quick few things. It's really amazing seeing all of you here. Thank you so much for coming out of the way to have a look at things. This is a combination for me of about 5 years of shooting, but the reality is that my work with this stopped a few months ago. I only got back to Australia a few days ago. There's been an absolutely insane amount of help and generosity and support on the ground here for months leading up to this. So I just really want to thank, of course, Matthew for his very generous kind words just now. Very interesting. I asked him very last minute, and he didn't mention very kindly how poor a student of his I was. So I was very lucky that he agreed to do this for me at such short notice when he's so busy. Thanks to my girlfriend Yuna, who was very patient during. She was present for all of these being taken, and the way that I work is very slow, and she was very patient to put up with a lot of that. She was also my harshest critic, which was not always fun, but very handy. Thanks to my family, who has given a ridiculous amount of both emotional support and physical running around, getting prints between places, to galleries, to framers, back and forth like that. Thanks to Florian Zeidel, who isn't here. He's a friend back in Japan. He runs the largest blog of abandoned places in Japan. He was incredibly generous in telling me many of these locations that I went to shoot at. Thank you also to Jim Mackesy, who I'm not sure if he's here, but he very kindly provided the printing of the brochures here, which look great. Thank you also to especially Natalie. I don't know if she's here, but oh great, Natalie over here is my printer. She is absolutely amazing. She's been working for months, sending me ridiculous 3 AM emails with proofs and tests and things like that constantly. Without her, I would not have been able to get these from the screen to how they look now. So perfect, just how I want them. Thank you, Natalie, so much. And of course, also, just quickly as well, Madeline for giving me the chance and letting me exhibit there is so kind, and all the work she's done to hang it looks, I couldn't be happy with it. So thank you everyone so much. Madeline, thank you so much. We'll leave the hand out. Matthew, thank you so much for doing that. But Natalie, there's something for you as well. Natalie, come and grab your other big bag. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Oh, and one more thing for Madeline. Here as well. Thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.